Joel Fitzgibbon out to send a clear message to Hydro Aluminium Kurri Kurri in federal parliament.
I absolutely reject the idea that we are going to be used as a waste dump for a toxic waste product.
The Minister for the Hunter had been advised the company had made an application to the state government to dump toxic waste from the potlines of its now closed smelter in an old Hunter Valley mine. Today, the company's managing director, Richard Brown, stressed that's not the case.
We spoke to Joel yesterday afternoon and assured him that we have no plans for disposing of the SPL that way, and we would never entertain that.
But he wouldn't rule out using the toxic waste as landfill.
Options for all materials, need to be considered. At this early stage, we can't rule anything out because it is a complex process and it's an expensive process, and we have to investigate everything.
Mr Fitzgibbon has condemned the move, saying it's not an option.
After so many decades of operation, it will cost the company millions, literally millions, to dispose of the potline safely. It really needs to be reprocessed.
The one thing that we can guarantee is that there are rules and regulations around the remediation, and we have to abide by those rules and regulations.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
It's a chance for Newcastle to shine on the world stage, and our biggest surfing competition, Surffest, is set to sparkle.
It takes us to the next level. That's what it does, and I think Hunter Water have been raising the bar each year, and as they've continued their improvement. So this is fantastic news.
Hunter Water has announced a $27 million UV disinfection system for Burwood Beach wastewater treatment plant, which means Merriweather Beach will be in even better shape. Normally, the water quality rates well, but when more than 20 millimetres of rain falls, quality can drop.
It's a reasonably rare occurrence, but it can be dangerous when it does happen. So it's just another little thing that just makes it that much more safe to surf at Merriweather.
We hope to see it online and up and running early 2016.
Meanwhile, Hunter Water has defended its decision to outsource the operation of its 25 wastewater and water treatment plants to a national firm, a move it says will save $23 million.
Already, Hunter Water customers have on average the third lowest water bill in the country. We are determined to make sure that we hold on to that ranking, if not improve it.
But member for Wallsend Sonia Hornery thinks the move is a step towards privatisation.
Outsourcing 25 treatment plants, wastewater plants, as well as the other parts of the privatisation that Hunter Water has undertaken in the last few years by stealth, equals privatisation, and that's not in our best interests.
It's made a big difference and boosted the morale for the nursing staff.
This is what 7 years without a haircut looks like. But after striving to replicate Rapunzel's do all her life, today little Jamie took a giant leap. Inspired by a segment on a television program, her lovely locks were chopped for Variety's alopecia program.
There was a girl that had alopecia, and then I turned over to Mum and I just felt like cutting my hair off.
She's raised $1,000 and now her golden mane will be turned into a wig for a little girl far less fortunate.
And everyone's always commented about how long Jamie's hair is, so it was a big thing for her to give that all up.
Across town, a nose job of a different kind. A fresh lick of paint for Sid's and Kid's most prominent feature, just in time for Red Nose Day. An organisation that hopes to raise $50,000 in the Hunter.
We fell fairly short of that last year, so that would be a fantastic goal.
And with 3,500 sudden and unexpected deaths among infants in Australia every year,
the more less taboo that subject becomes and these beautiful babies get acknowledged, the more people are coming in to receive support after their baby has died.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
A historic day for Australian football, the inaugural draw for the FFA Cup's round of 32. Selected first, the Jets will host Perth Glory, with former skipper Ruben Zadkovich likely to return to the Hunter earlier than expected. As for the Hunters' two National Premier League clubs, the Magic is hoping to have plenty of local support when it hosts former NSL powerhouse, the Brisbane Strikers.
Obviously, the club's excited about it, the whole situation, but Brisbane Strikers are a quality side, so they've produced a lot of good players that have gone on and played in the A-League, so we're quite excited about it.
South Cardiff drew one of the lowest ranked teams, but the Gunners will have to travel to Melbourne.
It's extremely exciting. I think in the inaugural year, I think it's to see South Cardiff up in lights is very exciting for the club.
Dates for the first round will be finalised on Monday. They'll fall on the last Tuesday in July or the first 3 Tuesdays in August. The Gunners will be hoping to kickstart their FFA Cup campaign and offset some of the cost of the trip to Victoria by claiming the winner's cheque from the State Cup final on July 9.
It's a really good opportunity to win a trophy for the club, so I think the boys will be firing and ready to go.
This weekend, the Magic welcomes back big names Peter Haynes and Scott Pettit for the clash with the Jets youth. On Sunday, Western plays the Jaffers and South Cardiff hosts Adamstown. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. From the A-League's golden boot to a starting spot at the World Cup, Adam Taggart's rapid rise shows no sign of slowing down. Having arrived back in Australia last night, the former Jet will spend a short time at home before linking with his new team in the English Championship. The 21-year-old is already starting to talk like a member of Fulham Football Club.
Disappointing though that we've gone down now. So for us, we're to get straight back up there and compete in that top league.
Despite leaving Brazil with no points from their 3 group matches, Taggart believes the Socceroos prove they belong on the game's biggest stage.
We did what we set out to do and measured ourselves against the best teams and players in the world, and now we know where we're at and we can go from there. It's all about moving forward, improving as a team, as a country and individuals.
As well as preparing for his first season in southwest London, Taggart is also hoping to retain his place in the Socceroos squad for the upcoming Asian Cup. He knows expectations will be high on home soil following the solid showing in South America.
Going into the Asian Cup, it gives us a lot of confidence, and again, on our, at our own country, it'd be nice to walk away with, a few more wins and maybe some silverware.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
3 serious assaults at licensed premises in Newcastle in as many days had police warning.
To come and enjoy it, have a good time, but we certainly won't accept this sort of behaviour.
Measures introduced by police and licensees in 2008 to enforce lockouts have slashed the number of drunken assaults by more than 30%. But that's little comfort for Josh Dinnery. He was attacked inside a licensed premises in November last year. A night out at Hamilton's Exchange Hotel left the 35-year-old looking like this.
Just felt this crack in the face, sort of bang, bang twice, and it probably knocked me back 4 or 5 metres.
The unprovoked attack, which police are looking into, still haunts him to this day.
The guy was standing across the bar looking at me, gesturing that he wanted to go outside to finish me off, and I still didn't know to this day what I'd done.
The licensee of the Exchange Hotel today refused to comment on the incident. Alcohol-fuelled violence on the streets of Newcastle has some cabbies like Milton Kane wary of a night of mayhem.
A lot of the young people, I think the reason probably why they're not is they're already so well tanked up. They've had so much to drink before they've come.
And the amount of drivers willing to work after-hours shifts has diminished as a result.
Well, there are many drivers who will not work night work because of it. Many of them will not.
The Secretary of the Newcastle and Hunter branch of the Hotels Association believes individuals need to take ownership of their actions.
People need to be civilised, need to take responsibility for themselves, and everybody can coexist together, as can businesses.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
More than an inconvenience, the condition of Becolbins Road is now affecting Ian Packer's livelihood. The local business owner says he has been rallying for 17 years for repairs to be made to Campbell's Lane, which leads to his estate. Now he admits he's fighting a losing battle.
Our particular road, we have a lot of guests that come and because of the road conditions either book out or don't continue on.
So it came as no surprise to Mr Packer that the NRMA says the Hunters roads are in need of close to $250 million to repair them to a satisfactory condition. Across the region, it's Cessnock that's worst off, while both Lake Macquarie and Maitland aren't too far behind. Newcastle is in need of the least amount of work.
We're gradually upgrading the bigger roads, and the new Hunter Expressway is a good example of a 5-star road. We need now local roads to be a 5-star level.
Looking at roads like these, it's no wonder that Cessnock Council says the problem is too big to tackle on their own. They've joined the NRMA in calling for the federal government to fund the works through their fuel excise.
The more money we get, the sooner we attack the program.
They are going to be paying more at the pump. We want to get a better fair share to go back into Hunter roads.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
I've been collecting for about 40 years. I've been a pharmacist for 40 years. I'm now retired, and I perhaps felt a little bit guilty. Dad was a pharmacist and I wasn't interested in the old things then, but the older I get, the more interested in the past I become.
Living out his dream is what John Campbell is wishing for.
It'll be absolutely incredible. It'll be just mind-blowing to win something like that.
Next week, the 62-year-old card shark will head to the world's gambling mecca, Las Vegas, to compete against 6,000 players for a prize pool of $10 million. And he's hoping for a slice of luck.
You get the good and the bad. You get good runs, you get bad runs.
The World Series of Poker has seen its fair share of Aussies in the past, most notably Joe Hasham, who won the event in 2005. And the man they call the Grey Gazelle believes he's got just as much chance of winning as anyone, and he's got a game plan.
Patience. I'll sit there and I can just wait and wait and wait, get some big hands and hope they hold up. Last month was a very good month, so they just come in waves. Your hands hold up and then they don't hold up.
And he won't be the only Hunter representative. Tanya Hunter will also take to the tables in a preliminary event, and the Curry Curry local feels she's already won.
I think I'm already winning because I'm already going to Vegas to play in one of the biggest events. Game of luck also. You just got to know when to hold them, I suppose, and when to fold them, as the song says.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Second played third as Hamilton hosted Southern Beaches in round 11, the visitors enjoying a mid-season revival. Neither side was giving much ground in the first half. Sorelli Bainavalu made an early break following a Beaches mistake, but the Hawks eventually hit the front thanks to a Jason Keelan penalty. Hamilton's first try looked all too easy as Rob Smith put Eric Vasu into a big gap and he did the rest. Beach's first decent attack came midway through the half, the visitors only denied by a high tackle. But their fans didn't have to wait long. Marty Delors set up Daniel Marshall for an easy 5-pointer. Another penalty shortly before the break put the Hawks in front 11-7. Down by 4, Beaches made a bright start to the second half, only to be held up over the line. Hamilton provided the perfect response, Vasu with his second of the afternoon to increase the Hawks' advantage. When Hamilton scored again 10 minutes later, the home side looked unbeatable. But Southern Beaches weren't about to lay down. Ray Furphy gave them hope of a comeback. With 10 to go, another try and a successful conversion made it 28-24 and Beaches were back in it. But the Hawks received a late penalty for this hit. Keelan's kick made the final score 31-24 to the home side.
Sunflowers turn to catch the smallest glimpse of sunlight even on the cloudiest of days, which is why this fundraising run for families facing blood cancer uses them as its trademark and a symbol of hope. Among those taking part this year is Karen Manns and her daughters. In 2010, Karen was diagnosed with the disease. The support she received from the foundation in hospital was priceless.
Knowing that they're there, especially when we were in Sydney for transport and accommodation for the family. We had access to the transport drivers to take us across to RPA.
The support also enabled Karen's family to be with her during treatment.
As soon as Mum was diagnosed, we went straight to them and we got lots of support, and she got counselling and that sort of stuff, and they've just been fantastic. So we're just trying to give a little bit back and help out the families that need it just like we were.
The money raised from today will go towards care, family counselling and telephone support for other cancer sufferers.
It can be a very difficult process being diagnosed with blood cancer, in particular because treatment can be quite a long process, and often people have to relocate to major metropolitan areas for their treatment.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
After 3 months, I'm finally moving on to a rehab centre, and I'm really excited. It's obviously the next stage, and it's one step closer to going home, which is something that I'm really looking forward to, and something that I really need to do. It's been a month since we last spoke, and within that month I've had a few hard times. Obviously, the recovery has plateaued out a little bit, but I've really started to not accept, but start to work with what I've got at the moment.
With the Jets youth beating Broadmeadow yesterday, second-placed Edgeworth couldn't afford to drop points against Charlestown City, and the early signs were good. Former A-League player Troy Hearfield received an early booking. Dylan Holtz tried his luck for Edgeworth, but his shot flew just wide. Brodie Taylor did well to find space in the box, but couldn't hit the target either. Hearfield's long-range effort was the Blues' only decent chance in the first half. The tough tackles kept on coming, but it was this challenge that changed the game. The referee awarded a penalty. Bren Hamill did just enough to beat Cameron Cellini. Edgeworth went agonisingly close to extending its lead shortly before the break. This effort in the second half was worthy of an Academy Award, but the real drama came when the referee awarded another penalty. Ben Hughes levelled the score at 1-1. Edgeworth ended with 10 men with Joshua Evans sent off, but the sides would split the points.
It's been a long haul and it isn't over yet. But today, a win for Port Waratah Coal Services and its proposed fourth coal terminal. The Department of Planning has found the project can proceed with strict conditions put in place to minimise impacts on the community and the environment.
We think what we have is a project that will meet the requirements for of the industry in the future and as we have demonstrated, can be built and operated without negative impact on the community.
The company first proposed a fourth terminal 4 years ago. Since then, the size has been reduced and its export capacity of 120 million tonnes of coal per year downgraded to 70 million. But the project has attracted no shortage of community opposition. Concerns range from air quality to the future of endangered green and golden bell frogs which are found on the site.
We've addressed all the concerns that was raised through the public consultation process. There's a comprehensive offset program proposed for both the birds and the green and golden bell frog. We believe it's a very valuable package that will actually leave the environment better off.
But the approval process is far from over. The Planning Assessment Commission will now hold a public hearing before reporting back to the department. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Whether it be face-to-face or via the phone, thousands of Hunter families rely on the GP access after-hours service.
Yeah, we've used it a couple of times just because we're down the road and it was the only place open to go to. So having a first kid was really valuable for us.
More than 250 GPs work on a roster and each year receive on average 80,000 calls and 50,000 patient visits. But federal funding for the successful service, which takes pressure off busy emergency departments, is uncertain. It could close next year.
Oh, it'd be devastating for people. It really would be.
I think it's more of a concern than it's ever been in the past. I think we are in a new political environment.
Clinical Director Dr Lee Fong says with the future of Hunter Medicare Local under a cloud, plus the resignation of its CEO last week, questions have now been raised about GP access.
It's not as clear that the Medicare Local will continue into one of these new primary care networks or primary health networks. And seeing as this is actually the body that provides a lot of funds for GP access after hours.
He's turning to the public for help.
The more we hear from the community that it is an important service to them and that they really value the service, then that makes our case better.
If council has its way, every bit of this will come at a cost. Under its draft outdoor trading policy, displaying any advertising or clothing on a footpath would cost businesses in the CBD $108 per square metre annually, $57 for those in the remainder of the local government area. When NBN News approached retailers for comment today, it was the first they'd heard of the plan.
I think it's a bit outrageous, to be honest. I think council collect enough fees from us through rates and other avenues that they have. I just don't think it's fair.
Having our rack out there is just a way to attract customers and to bring them into the store.
Personally, it wouldn't really bother me. I think it'll get a lot of rubbish off the streets.
Existing fees for outdoor dining would also increase by 2.8%. Council estimates the new charges would generate $125,000 in revenue annually. The release of the plans comes at a time when council is trying to reinvigorate the CBD and attract more shoppers into the mall, and that's the part retailers just don't understand. Council says the policy is designed to prevent informal placement of articles on footpaths that could cause trip hazards or distractions for motorists. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
For children like 6-year-old Felix, reading aloud can be a daunting experience. But a program at his local library is helping to improve his literacy, and it seems the secret is reading to a four-legged friend.
It's that chance of having reading in a situation where there's no criticism, no judgment, and the chance for the kids to build a relationship with the dog and the Delta volunteer really does make the program very special.
The BARK program helps put children at ease during a crucial stage of their development.
Because it's just reading in front of someone who I know. He just sits there and listens to me.
Out-of-school sessions are arranged with volunteers from the Delta Society Australia who specialise in therapy with animals. A local academic documented the dramatic improvement of one child's reading in the 8-week program.
We knew that the program was really having a positive effect on those people that were participating, and now we've got the scientific proof.
For parents, the results speak for themselves.
If there's any parents thinking that, the kids might just benefit from a little bit of confidence in their reading, I think it's a really good program for that.
Lake Macquarie Council is currently looking at expanding the program across its other libraries. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
Taking charge of his first session, Phil Stubbins hit the ground running. The new boss won't focus purely on fitness in pre-season. He's just happy for the players to have the ball at their feet. His first impression of the squad was positive.
Certainly a lot of energy out there. The boys embraced the session really well. So I think in terms of the first interaction between the group and the new coaching staff, it was excellent.
Stubbins is likely to look overseas to replace Adam Taggart up front and is also chasing another midfielder and a winger. He admits he has a candidate for captain, but won't finalise that for a few weeks. There are already several new faces in the squad, including Adrian Madashi and Josh Baresi. Fellow recruit Marcos Flores is showing few signs of discomfort as he recovers from knee surgery, possibly giving Jets fans a preview of a future goal celebration. Having taken part in the Socceroos squad, Mark Birighitti has been given more time off. Despite missing out on a deal in Germany, the keeper is still expected to be back at his best.
Speaking to him, as I have done, he's in a very good space of mind at the moment. So I would say that Birighitti's got absolutely no problem in terms of coming back and being flat.
Fellow Socceroo Josh Brillante was also given a later return date, but couldn't wait.
It's in your blood, you live for it, you want to be out in training. So, to be home in Newcastle and stay away from the training is pretty hard.
Brillante has also attracted overseas interest. For now, he's focused on returning to the Jets midfield.
I grew up playing midfield and played a little bit in the last couple of seasons as well, and went out to right back, but now, with the departure of a couple of midfielders, I want to cement that as my spot.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
We wouldn't be putting out performances like that or putting our butts on the line and defending like that if we have. We would have lost all confidence a couple of weeks ago and just racked it. So there's definitely there's no give up in this team. So we're just going to keep fighting till the death and see what happens. I should have probably got Hayne in that first half. It was another 10 metres. But yeah, I think it was a pretty good effort. Defence and attack was probably a whole group effort.
Approvals for the T4 might be moving forward, but community groups aren't giving up the fight. A reduced terminal size and environmental offsets are some of the amendments to the multi-billion-dollar proposal.
Given the sorts of controls we have in place at the existing terminals and the conditions that have been proposed by the department, we can establish a terminal without negative impact on the community.
But according to environmental groups who hold concern for endangered species and public health, it's not enough.
I think in fact it reflects more the fact that there's very much a softening in the coal market internationally.
The proposal will now move to the Planning Assessment Commission, which will schedule a public hearing in Newcastle in the next 6 weeks. Both groups are confident that PAC hearings will provide them the opportunity to mobilise voices of the community to help make an informed decision on whether the economic return of a fourth coal terminal is worth the cost to public health and the environment.
We think that if we get a genuinely independent assessment from the Planning Assessment Commission, we think the only conclusion that they will come to is this a project which is not supported by the community and it's not needed for the City of Newcastle.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
So I think it's important that we get the extension to support the community. Like, this mine's been operating for over 30 years and it employs a lot of local people. It's going to really hurt our town if we don't receive it.
Suburban sprawl has seen Minmai Road become a golden pathway to the west, but for some locals, there's nothing golden about one rumoured change.
The time to act is now. If it gets rezoned, we have absolutely no recourse.
With a McDonald's already rubber-stamped at nearby Wallsend Plaza, KDC Proprietary Limited, which lists the worldwide fast food giant as one of its clients, has made a submission to Newcastle City Council to rezone this parcel of land a block away from the local high school. For this doctor and dietitian, concern about its possible effects.
Preventing children from becoming overweight and obese is certainly more effective than trying to reverse things once it's happened.
They've tried to do it very sneakily under the radar.
Well, just behind me is the patch of land where concerned residents are worried that a string of fast food chains will spring up. But as far as one of the landowners is concerned, their claims are well off the mark.
The site is way too small for any degree of takeaway, whether it be McDonald's, KFC, Hungry Jack's, none of them will fit on the site.
Aaron Buman is looking to extend his heritage-listed hotel on the adjacent site.
This is about me putting accommodation on the hotel site. There will be residual land of some capacity, and I am looking towards putting a medical centre on that site before anything else.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
It's part of a raft of measures which will push off that need for a dam at some stage in the future.
An engineering marvel that's long been hidden from the eyes of Newcastle. But soon, the grand stone archways and high brick columns of the Cooks Hill Underground Reservoir will be unlocked for tours, giving the public a chance to travel back in time.
This can be basically brought back to life for an educational facility, essentially for entertainment, and is one of Newcastle's most fantastic historic sites.
It's a time machine. You're essentially seeing New South Wales as it was in the 1880s, hand-built, muscle, horses, pre-electricity.
And and it's almost unique. The reservoir is just one of two in Australia. It was built in 1880 when Newcastle was in desperate need of a clean and reliable water supply. At the time, 43 people in every 1,000 were dying of waterborne diseases. When operating, the reservoir was capable of holding up to 2 million litres of water. It was pumped straight to people's homes in the late 1800s when Newcastle was just starting to boom. Before it becomes the city's newest tourist attraction, new stairs and lighting will be installed as well as improved ventilation.
It's about consolidating the historical aspects of what Newcastle can provide, and we know that this piece of architecture is quite significant. There aren't too many of these left around Australia, I've got to say.
The tours will be operated by ballot from early 2015. Already, more than 200 people have applied. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
The clash between the Goannas and Bulldogs was barely out of the blocks when Byron Warren flattened Brendan Halad. The fullback escaped punishment on the field but was later cited by Cessnock officials. Halad was taken to hospital. This is how he looked on Saturday night. Today he's still sporting 7 stitches and 2 black eyes.
I don't really remember a lot of it. I scooped the ball up. Next thing I was on the ground, just bleeding.
Despite a broken nose, Halad won't undergo surgery until the end of the season and has been cleared to play for the country rep side in Hawaii in a fortnight. Curry officials have until next Thursday to decide whether to fight the charges against Warren and risk a 10-game suspension.
I still haven't got an issue with Byron, you know. I don't know what made him do what he did, frustration maybe, but I'm sure in his own way he's regretting it, yeah.
Halad has copped criticism for speaking out about the incident, but he's had the backing of his club and rivals.
Since the incident, I've had nothing but support from him, especially Captain Mick Campton, a good mate of mine. He's been constantly ringing me and wishing me all the best.
Curry scored a late try to win Saturday's game, knocking the Goannas out of the top 5. Halad believes they won't stay there for long.
We've got a great side and we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll come good. We can't afford to drop too many more, but coming into the season, we'll be there.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. At times, he's just another face in the crowd, but Robert Thompson's record in the saddle has become the stuff of legends. On a day when Cessnock comes out to play, one of the town's favourite sons was chasing another piece of history. Early on, the omens weren't good. A random gust of wind sent 2 marquees and debris flying onto the track. Once order was restored, Tomo finished a clear last in race 2. On board got to be a dream. But the feature was always going to be the focus. Local trainer Todd Howlett had the early favourite, Agamore.
Look, he's a good chance. He's drawn well. He's been racing well. He won the Cessnock Cup here 2 starts ago.
Fellow Cessnock trainer Jeremy Sylvester has already had plenty of success in this event.
Yeah, I've won it 6 times, probably run about 4 placings, so I've had a bit of luck in it. I hope it continues today.
He had Thompson on board one of his 3 runners.
It's been a very good race to me over the years and all that. I've been lucky enough to win 9, so I'm going for 10 this afternoon.
The pair was looking for back-to-back wins, Youthful King going for 3 straight. Robert's mum took some of the credit.
I picked this out of January's 3 because I'm a good picker. I said, you ride King.
The humble hoop took it all in his stride.
Had a real good run. I was back behind midfield, inside. I needed luck, but geez, I was full of running all the way. I knew I was going to be in the finish if I just had a bit of luck.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It started with praise from the Premier.
He should be very proud of what he's done. He has made a huge difference to this city, as has this team to the Hunter region, and we're very proud on that record.
And now there seems to be a swell of community support for Tim Owen to recontest the seat of Newcastle.
I think he's a good man. He hasn't been given enough time, but the time he's been in there, he's done a good job, done an excellent job. He's been criticised unfairly and absolutely run again, mate.
He's been very active, and I would like to see him come back for another session.
Mr Owen announced his decision to quit politics in May after admitting it was highly likely his election campaign was partly funded by banned donors, something he claims to have had no knowledge of at the time. But the Newcastle MP says he hasn't changed his mind about running.
I give it thought on an ongoing basis, and and there are people who approach me on an ongoing basis, but when I make a decision, I generally stick with it.
But who will contest the seat of Newcastle for the Liberals? Former NBN newsreader John Church has ruled out a second tilt at politics, along with Jamie Abbott and Newcastle councillor Lisa Tierney. Nominations for the seat of Newcastle opened late last week. Today, a spokesperson from the Liberal Party told NBN News so far there's been no contenders. Meanwhile, Labor candidate Tim Crackenthorpe's campaign is already in full swing.
I've got a clear vision. I'm talking to the community. I know what the community wants.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
The future of these two senior clergymen within the Maitland-Newcastle Catholic Diocese remains undecided. The conduct of Monsignor Alan Hart and Father William Burston was criticised during the Special Commission hearings, both found to be unsatisfactory witnesses. Whistleblower policeman Peter Fox, also found to be an unsatisfactory witness, believes Bishop Bill Wright now needs to take decisive action.
And I understand that these men may have given great service in other ways during their time with the church, but can you really forgive those monumental failures to protect children? I think that's a pretty easy question to answer.
He's critical of the bishop's newly announced plan to form an independent review panel to provide advice on the priest's fate. In a statement, the bishop said the panel would include members from both within and outside the diocese and include a number of non-Catholics, and that the process would be complex and require time to complete. It follows the bishop's revelation last month he had asked Monsignor Hart and Father Burston to stand down from the diocese advisory councils.
They will remain in their parishes doing their parish work. They're both very senior men and they're both well regarded in most respects.
Detective Chief Inspector Fox believes the bishop shouldn't be relying on the advice of others.
Well, that's what's made victims so angry for so long. They have, this isn't something new. This has been going on for decades and decades. Procrastination and failure to make the hard decisions.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
In good times and bad, Aubrey Brooks has been the face of Newcastle's iconic steel industry. After 38 years with BHP, in 1999 he had the honour of shutting down the steelworks for the final time. Since then, he's kept the memory of the men and women of steel alive through tours, memorials and reunions. And today, he was recognised for his service, named one of 9 Heritage Volunteers of the Year statewide.
When I started there in 1961, there was 11,500 people on the site, and sadly some of them lost their lives. So I dedicate this memorial to the men and women of steel.
Tim Owen also presented Mr Brooks with his own award, a throwback to the member for Newcastle's Air Force Days.
When you met somebody that you had a lot of respect for,
Don't
was a
you
good
kiss
friend.
me, Tim.
No, I won't kiss you, mate. You would put it in the palm of your hand, you'd shake hands, and you'd hand it over. So my warmest congratulations, mate.
And Mr Brooks's work continues. The Newcastle Industrial Heritage Association will build a memorial at Muster Point to remember BHP steelworkers who lost their lives.
There were some horrific accidents on that site, and it doesn't matter where people lose their lives, families suffer.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Last weekend saw a forgettable match for the North Stars, trounced 6-2 by Adelaide.
They just finished off and had great composure. We just let ourselves down.
The Gary Doré coach side has struggled with consistency this season, and he believes man-to-man marking was again Newcastle's downfall. That was evident in the third act against the Adrenaline as the visitors shot away.
And there was just so many times we had the pressure, we had the chances, we didn't capitalise on it. They came down and snuck one in on us. Third period, they got away with 4 of them, but we just couldn't put it together.
The North Stars captain is also at a loss to explain the side's defensive lapses.
That was very frustrating. You got a bit of pressure on the offensive zone, and they walk down and score. And, it feels like beating your head against the wall sometimes.
The acid test will come this weekend, with Newcastle facing a double-header against the Perth Thunder, and beating a team that sits at the bottom of the ladder is a must.
Huge weekend for us. These guys are chasing us, and we got to stay ahead of the other teams that are behind us as well. But a couple teams that have games in hand that are only a couple points ahead of us, so we need to come away with points this weekend.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Hopefully I get some good performances in and get in the squad most of the time, but hopefully it'll be a good week to try. Just got to keep working a little bit harder and maybe put on 5 kilos in the gym and you'll take my spot.
Only yesterday, Robert Thompson showed his sublime skill yet again. Australia's favourite bush jockey notched up his 10th Jungle Juice Cup win, number 4015 for his career. Today, the 56-year-old was celebrating off-course at a function in his honour, and there was a surprise he didn't see coming. It was an afternoon of highlighting the Little Master from his early days in the saddle on his first horse, Trinket, to detailing what could have been an abrupt ending to his career, a horror fall at Warwick Farm in 2004. He certainly did, racking up win after win in the next 10 years before his greatest achievement. Michael Kane, NBN News.
It's been on wish lists for decades, and this Christmas those who support the severing of Newcastle's rail line will receive the ultimate gift.
It's taken a lot of planning to get this over the line, but I'm very, very happy that we've been able to announce these dates starting from the end of this year.
The festive season will bring a flurry of activity. 11 new road crossings will be built, and Hamilton Station will close for 2 weeks from Boxing Day as it undergoes renovations. During that time, trains will stop at Broadmeadow with buses to complete the journey in and out of the city. And today the government hinted at a start date for the light rail system.
We anticipate construction itself of the light rail will start at the end of next year.
The Property Council has welcomed the news. It expects the overhaul to provide a further economic boost to the city.
We've seen since the announcement was made about 18 months ago, over $1 billion worth of investment pour into the city.
It's a decision that has the Save Our Rail group feeling far from festive. But the group believes its campaign is far from finished.
Save Our Rail campaign will only gather more strength because people are now realising that this is in fact going to happen.
The member for Newcastle is confident opponents will change their tune.
People will look back in a few years' time, once we've got the light rail in, the revitalisation is finalised, and wonder why we took decades and decades and decades to do this to the city of Newcastle.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
Nestled in Broke, Margan Estate is thriving, but there's concern that could change. Last October, the state government identified vineyards and horse breeding areas in the Upper Hunter as critical industry clusters, protecting them from new coal seam gas activity. But Andrew Margan says 2 significant vineyards behind his property were left off the map, and they're on land owned by AGL.
When it was handed up to the government, those vineyards were recognised as part of the critical industry cluster. Somewhere between there and the map being put on exhibition, those vineyards have dropped off. So the government have taken them off, I guess under pressure from AGL.
Yesterday, the government proposed to add another 19 properties to the critical industry cluster, but the AGL land again wasn't included. The government is seeking public comment on the proposed amendments, but Hunter Vignerons fear they're just going to be ignored again.
We will be putting a submission again, but no one seems to be listening to us.
Mr Margan wants an explanation of why the area is being excluded.
Why these vineyards have been allowed to drop off the map when they weren't supposed to, why the process isn't transparent, why I can't get an answer about how and why it's happened. It's not right.
The Department of Planning and Environment today said draft maps were exhibited last October, and during that time, resource companies were also given the opportunity to opt out if they owned a property in the region. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Delise Manton believes the state's Going Home, Staying Home program will mean one thing for the Walganurra Women's and Children's Refuge.
Closing. Close everything. We will not have a Walganurra Women and Children's Refuge. Our people will not have support. Our people won't have anywhere to go.
The refuge provides crisis accommodation, financial, legal and psychological help for families fleeing domestic violence and at the risk of homelessness. Demand outstrips supply, with the refuge forced to turn away 300 women and children in the last year alone.
The children is the ones that my heart goes out to. The trauma that they go through, seeing their father belt their mother. You know, sometimes the kids try to save their mum and they end up with a broken arm.
The government says the scheme will make specialist homeless services more accessible.
We're ensuring funding goes where it's needed most, and of course that applies to many services throughout the Hunter.
But Labor MPs today met with refuge workers and promised to fight any funding cuts.
This is wrong. We shouldn't be closing 9 services in the Hunter.
The opposition plans to circulate a petition demanding the Baird government rethink its policy.
This is in fact going to increase homelessness. The social costs, the economic costs will be enormous in the long run.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.